In the previous lesson, we saw how we can set up a sun and sky lighting using Redshift for Cinema 4D. And we set up this interior here, starting from an exterior lighting, and then we moved in. So we saw how we can create exterior, interior lighting and set up our scenes. We saw how we can work indoor, outdoor, how we can simulate artificial lights, how we can simulate natural lights. Now in this video here, I want to show you more about materials. So we're gonna start to talk about materials. So we finished to see the most important things about lights. We're going to come back on some of these when we will do the rendering. Here, I just wanna do some fix. I'm just gonna add a dome light. So everything now turns white because you can decide if you want to use the sky as a background, or you can override or not the rest of the scene, or if you want to use something else as a background. Now, in this case, I want to use an image because it's more detailed than the sky. The sky is good for setting up the sun and to see the sun like in the sunset or other positions. Now here, dome light, I want to use this as a background. So we can turn that on and off. We can adjust the intensity of the dome light. So we can work with more natural lights in combination. And using a texture is always better than a plain color or a gradient. And this is also something we're gonna do in the materials. So using textures also for the HDRIs is kind of similar how we can work with materials in Redshift. So we can work with or without, but usually if you work with the textures, it's going to be better. So I'm going to drop the HDRI texture inside this dome light so we can start to see some background in there and not just like the windows and the ports of lights effects. Now the problem here is also about the glass. Now, in the previous lesson, we import this model and we converted all the materials and replaced them with Redshift materials. But the problem on the glass remained, so I can fix it. So if I select the object, I can look for the object in the object panel, and I can look for the material in the material panel. Or I can access the material just by double clicking and selecting the material from there on the object panel. And you can see that this one here in the specific is using the editor, the graph editor, or the Redshift shader graph, which is something a little bit complex for those of you who never used a system like this before, which is similar like to Blender and other render engine, and it's not similar to what we usually do in Cinema 4D, but don't worry, because actually here on the right side, we do have something that is pretty similar to Cinema 4D and V-Ray also, so other render engine. So we can adjust the material from here in this case. So I can also right click on the material itself and go to edit. And if it's gonna be here, it's probably because you have here on the Redshift materials and tools, you probably have use node materials for presets. So you can define if you want to use this as a default editor or not, but this is going to show up essentially if you want to work with Redshift, because Redshift uses nodes. So this is the node of the material, and then you have the output node, and then you can adjust everything in here. So it's not going to be difficult once you understand how it's going to work. So don't worry, we're going to go from basic materials, from basic channels, basic parameters, and then we're going to move into more complex things. Now here we have the base channel, which is not really important for the glass. The reflection, well, glass are reflective, but this is also not so important. So we also have the weight and the colors. So weight is the importance, the intensity, the power of that channel and that parameter in that channel. Now the problem here is probably that we don't have like the best transmission. So I put the weight here to 1, and now it's already getting better. And also, let me see here on the, well, make sure you don't have any other effect turned on. So weight must be 0. do everything except the transparency or refraction, and also here we don't need in the emission, we don't need the weight, we don't need this material to be a lamp or emissive. And something can help also is to make the glass thin, so we can use thin wall, and that's gonna make it, you know, less deep. And let me see here. So still we need something to fix. You can see it's not a clean refraction still. So maybe we can turn off the base weight because we don't really need that as well. And it's still being too rough. And this is because if you see here on the reflection, and also there you go, we have a roughness. So make sure you don't have roughness, because roughness is gonna affect the reflection. But we're gonna come back to all of this in just a minute. So this is where we got the previous file from. It's called Floating Tiny Alm from Sketchfab. And in this video, I want to change scenario. I want to use something different, and I want to show you another source. This time, I want to use TurboSquid, which is another website where you can get 3D models for sale or free, and they have a lot of formats in here we can pick from. So I'm going to type orc because I want to use some figurine, something that I can, you know, test with different materials. So something not too big, not too complex, kind of a board game figurine. So this one here will be fine. This is free, and you can see the author and the name, so you can also search it and download it. Now in TurboSquid, you have many free models you can use. I have downloaded a lot of them. And you need an account. You need to create a TurboSquid account in order to download various files. So I also want to look for some motion graphics scene. And I think this kind of splash, well, this is supposed to be an animation, but doesn't matter if it's an animation. We're just going to work with this with the materials. And I think it's really good to test some liquids or some subsurface scattering effects, translucency effects for, you know, different types of liquids like milk or honey, things like that. And if you want, you can also create, of course, motion graphics with Cinema 4D and then apply some nice REDSHIFT materials like emissive materials. This one here is a nice animated scene, and it has a lot of emissive effects applied, which you can definitely do in REDSHIFT. And I'm going to show you also you can do an emissive effect in the material. So depending on what channel you use in the material, you have different effects. So let's jump to a new scene, and I want to use another format as well. I want to use the STL file, and this is my download space in TurboSquid. So you're gonna have 1, 2 once you download the first models, and make sure, of course, you have an account to have this space. So I'm gonna use STL file because this is for 3D printing. So anything you have in STL can be printed. Since I don't want to work with textures in this first video about materials, I just want to work with the geometry, standard geometry and standard materials, and, you know, basic effects, basic channels, basic parameters. This is going to be fine. So I'm just gonna merge this because I don't want to create a new scene. Just want to merge this in my lesson 7 scene, and just merge and open it. Now the size, it's really important, talking about some effects like subsurface scattering, but also about lighting. So make sure you have a nice size. So once you bring this in, you may want to measure it. Now a quick way I measure things is, in order you know, to make sure that they are not too big or too small, is create a cube and just type like 200. So that's gonna be fine. The statue size is fine for what I need to do. And I can also use this cube to have some sort of background or backplate. So I'm gonna